Welcome to 805 Sports Talk, and our lead story today is the St. Joseph softball team and Skylar Johnson. Elliot, you were at their game against Pioneer Valley on Tuesday, and Skylar Johnson's kind of stating her case to be the most valuable player in the area. A huge game for her, a complete game shutout. Great day at the plate. What did you see from Johnson? We've talked quite a bit about the St. Joseph softball team, but they haven't gone away, and it's getting later and later in the season, and they're still right there. What did you see from the Knights on Tuesday?
Well, Skylar Johnson was not a one-woman team, but she sure led everything. She was dominant on the mound. She had a 6-hit shutout with 5 strikeouts and no walks. So she had command of all of her pitches. And then at the plate, she was at the bat 3 times and only saw 6 pitches, and she hit all 6 of them. And here's the order. She hit the first 3 pitches in the first inning she fouled off. Then on her 4th pitch, she had a 2-run single. In the 3rd inning, she saw 1 pitch and hit a solo home run. And then in the 6th inning, she saw 1 pitch and hit a 3-run home run, both to left center field in almost the identical spot, easily clearing the wall. So 6 pitches, 3 hits, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. That was an impressive showing. But their left fielder, Brianna Munoz, she also had a great day. She went 3 for 4. She hit a home run, a single, and a 2-run double. She knocked in 4 runs. So between the 2 of them, they knocked in 10 of the 11 runs, and it was impressive. Paige Huguenard, Hallie Hunter, Zeta Althide, Sienna Cavazos, and Mackenzie Gomez all hit. So they were hitting up and down the lineup from the number 1 hitter to the number 9 hitter. This is a much improved team, and you got to give a lot of credit to John Welch, the longtime Arroyo Grande coach, who's come over here, and he's taught these girls how to play and how to win, and he's having fun. He told me he's having the time of his life. They're 5-4 in the league, 4th place. They have a big game Friday against Arroyo Grande, 1 game behind them. If they win that, that'll really do a lot toward guaranteeing them a playoff spot out of the Pac-8. So this is a team that's had a big turnaround. Skylar Johnson is a huge part of it, but when you look at the girls behind her, they're all contributing. They're playing good defense, some great defense. They had a girl try to go from 1st to 3rd on a single on Pioneer Valley did, and Brianna Munoz got the ball in left field and threw on her line to 3rd base. That's about as far a throw as you're going to get on the field, and got her. She nailed her trying to slide headfirst into 3rd. It was an outstanding defensive play. Skylar Johnson, there was a ball hit to her left, and it went past her. She chased behind her and got it and flipped it to first base and beat the girl to first base. There's some great defense in that game too. And Pioneer Valley's having a really tough year in the first year under Christina Sewell, but they never gave up, they never gave in, they kept their attitude. Amazing the positive attitude these girls have. So hats off to them. They put up a good fight. They just couldn't beat a much stronger team. And one thing in this game, 1 walk. Neither starting pitcher gave up a walk. That was 10 innings of pitching, and then the relief pitcher for Pioneer Valley gave up a walk to the first batter she faced, and then got the rest of the side. And well, then she ran into trouble, gave up 2 runs, and the game was over. But it was a very well pitched game, good defense from both sides, but so much offense and too much Skylar Johnson on the mound. Great job. It was fun to go to.
All right, Friday, St. Joseph is at AG. Elliot, real quickly, who you got in that one?
I'm liking St. Joe in this one. I saw them play Arroyo Grande earlier this year, and they beat them. And John Welch loves Arroyo Grande. He was a coach there for a long time, but he's not their coach now. And you want your team to win, and he's taught these girls the same things he was teaching at Arroyo Grande. They're learning their lesson. Their education is not complete, and he's going to try and further it along. I mean, he's constantly coaching. take 2 steps back in the batter's box and, bring the ball down on the rise ball and things like that. He's talking to them all the time during the game, and I think they got a little bit of momentum, and I'm liking them for a shot in the playoffs.
All right, things are good for St. Joseph softball, but in the Santa Maria Valley, things are pretty bad for the baseball teams. Kenny, you saw Righetti lose 11-4 to Paso on Tuesday. St. Joseph struggled, falling to Mission Prep at home, and Santa Maria lost to Santa Ynez 2-0. So it was a rough day for those 3 teams that were in playoff contention, at least when the week started. What did you see from Righetti, and are we going to see any of these teams make the playoffs?
I'm lousy at foretelling the future. They have a chance, but they're all in not the most enviable position. Righetti, they have to raise their game in all phases from what it was yesterday. Brian Tamuka would be the first one. Their coach would be the first one to say that. The Paso Robles line, from what I have, was 11 runs, 14 hits, 1 error. Righetti's line, from what I had, was 4, 8, and 3. So that pretty much tells you the story. Righetti simply has to raise its game. Same with St. Joseph. No disrespect to Mission Prep, but they are, I think they're an improving team, but they're still a bottom half of the league team. I think St. Joseph should win that series. They should expect. They dropped the first one, so I mean, if they lose the series against Mission Prep, it's going to be hard. They do have Pioneer Valley, who's lost some close ones. They are improving, but they're struggling some. Then they play in a Royal Grande team, which has risen to be in the thick of the playoff chase in the season. Santa Maria, to be honest, I think they're in a tough spot. They're tied with Cabrillo for 4th. Cabrillo, I think, has the more favorable schedule. They still have 2 games left against Morro Bay. Cabrillo does, who has really struggled. I have a feeling that one game is going to come back to haunt Santa Maria. That game, they were up 7-0 in the 7th against Cabrillo, and they lost the lead. Cabrillo won in extra innings. I just have a feeling it's going to come back to haunt them.
Yeah, both the Saints and the Conks are 8-8. We see Cabrillo with a little late season push here. So I think those 2 teams are going to be battling it out for one of those last guaranteed playoff spots on the LPL baseball side. Now on the LPL softball side, Lorenzo, you've seen Cabrillo kind of come to life here late, get a win over Santa Ynez last week, and then this week beating Napomo. They had a big lead there, then it went to extras, and they held on for that one. What have you seen out of Cabrillo on the softball side?
Extra innings, and they thank Jesus for these victories. But, it's a young team that Adrian Abayari has, and he only has 2 seniors. But from what he told me yesterday, when it comes to these games that extends in extra innings, the winning is learned. And now this team is learning how to not only play in the 8th and then the 9th inning, but to finish. And so for a veteran coach like Adrian, who's had some really successful Cabrillo teams in the past, this is a welcome sign for him, because once the 2 seniors leave, I mean, he has even more talent coming back next year, especially going into that deep channel league. But, Delaney Gallimore has been very stellar at pitcher. You have Jones, who's one of their standout hitters, had a solo home run in that game yesterday. And then you have a rising freshman in Alexia Juarez-Wilhite, who had that game-winning RBI against Armani Garcia, of all people. But, this Cabrillo softball team, it may not look like it win-loss record-wise, but they're peaking at the right time, and they know their scenario that they're in, that a late push can potentially get them maybe even an at-large bid or just a low seed in general.
Yeah, we've seen that from both the Cabrillo and baseball softball teams with these late season surges, and they have experienced coaches there, Adrian Abiari at Cabrillo on the softball side, and then Jonathan Osborne on the baseball side. So it seems like their experience is kicking in with them kind of rounding into shape here late in the season. Lompoc's baseball team, though, has a first-year head coach, but the Braves are right there in second place in the LPL after losing a tough one 3-0 at Templeton. They host Templeton on Friday. Lorenzo, you're expected to be there at that big game. How big is that game Friday? And do you think the Braves are kind of out of it now, a game behind Templeton here late, or do you think it's going to kind of ride on what happens Friday?
I think to answer your first question, Joe, about the Friday game, I think this game's going to be even bigger than the 2 Santa Ynez matchups for this Braves team, because so much is on the line in this particular case. they can at least potentially maybe get a three-way tie, because Santa Ynez also isn't that far behind in the league standings. But they're playing with a lot of confidence. Granted, the Templeton game was a hiccup, and they also had that other hiccup with Santa Ynez. But there's still a bevy of confidence and a bevy of just understanding Brian Aguilar's expectations and just making that final push as well.
All right, staying in the Lompoc Valley, and it's a story, Lorenzo, you had been following for a couple weeks with Donny Cross stepping down as the AD at Lompoc. You knew this had been in the works for a while. They made it somewhat official on Tuesday with Donny announcing it and announcing that Claudia Terrones, who's the activities director over there at Lompoc, a renowned basketball coach over there at Lompoc, she's going to step into the AD role. What can you tell us about that situation, and what should we expect for Lompoc athletics and with what looks ahead for Claudia Terrones?
I think Lompoc athletics is in outstanding shape, especially with the work that Cross has been able to do over the years. I mean, he's seen CIF titles not only in football, but also in softball. And he's seen countless of league titles in football, also in other sports like track and field, and shared titles in girls basketball and boys basketball as well. So as far as Terrones is concerned, I mean, I can't think of anybody who's truly more deserving of this honor, because being around Claudia in the last couple of years, she just has such enthusiasm for the Lompoc High sports. Yeah, she's very supportive of the teams that she coaches, but she's also equally supportive for football, for boys basketball, for the soccer teams as well. And I mean, just her energy, her enthusiasm, I think will be an outstanding fit to be serving as the AD.
Yeah, she's kind of the face of that school. I think when you think of Lompoc High, you think of the football team, obviously. You think of guys like Napoleon Kaufman, Andrew Jones, but then Claudia Terrones is just right there with them with what she's done. And she's not even, a graduate of that school. She went to St. Joseph, but she's definitely kind of found her home there at Lompoc, so I think it's great. You also mentioned it yesterday, Lorenzo, that, we don't have too many female athletic directors around here. We were trying to think of all of them. I think Lori Decker was a AD at Napomo, and it's kind of cool. It kind of shows you how deserving she is. We didn't, you don't really think of that right away, her being a female AD.
And it's also believed that she's the first female AD in the history of Lompoc High as well. So it's a transcending moment.
Yeah, breaking barriers. That's pretty cool.
She's not just coming from being a coach, though. She's been the activities director there, so it's a step up for her. It's not a giant leap. She's earned this shot. She's well respected, and I'm sure she's going to do a great job. I mean, we all like her. She gets along great with everybody. She's an outstanding coach. She's an outstanding representative of that school. I think, Donny Cross has done a nice job, but I think she's going to do a better job.
One of the things that Claudia also mentioned in my story is that she does plan on coaching next year while serving as AD. She doesn't.
Would be big for her.
Yeah, she doesn't want to give up girls basketball. She doesn't want to give up track and field. And she also mentioned this: there's ADs in this area who coach and also do the AD role. Brian Wallace is one. Greg Lanphier as well. I'm sure different others.
Tom Mott.
Yeah, the late Bob Boyer, he was a coach as well.
Pete Fortier.
I think Pete does a little bit of everything.
He drives the bus. He does everything, but he's also the athletic director.
So Stan Bickley did that while he was there, and Pete's doing the same thing.
I think because of the region that we're in the enrollment, Claudia could definitely, to me, get away with running the athletic programs and also coaching two different teams. And keep in mind, juggle the number of kids she has as well, especially one getting ready to go to college.
Yeah, she's definitely got her hands full, but I don't think anyone will question that she's going to do a great job leading the Lompoc High athletic department over there. We do focus a lot on results, games, and playoff chases and all that, but Elliot, you on Saturday kind of took it in a different direction. There was a concussion seminar organized by Dignity Health. It was held at Arroyo Grande High School. What did they talk about? What are some key issues that are kind of developing? We haven't spent a lot of time on this topic, but it's definitely kind of a heated topic with concussions in all sports. We talk about cheerleading as one of the most, injury-prone sports. Girls soccer, obviously football is always in the forefront of concussion. What did you learn? Did you learn anything from Saturday, and kind of what was their focus?
Well, their focus is on education. They want to get the concussion epidemic under control. Now, it wasn't just Dignity Health, though. I mean, Dr. Willard Chung is the program director for the Family Medicine Residency program at Dignity Health, and he was the Dignity Health sponsor, the leader of this whole seminar, the symposium, and in interest of openness, he's also one of my doctors. So I know Dr. Chung very well, and I know, though, how he is involved in this from an athletic standpoint. And they brought in Chris Nowinski. He's a Harvard University graduate, played football at Harvard, and then went on to be a WWE wrestler, and he was going to be a world champion. He wrestled under many names. The one he was most known as Chris Harvard. But he got kicked in the head inadvertently. He told me outright that nobody thinks that it's a sport. The outcomes are all predetermined, but accidents happen, and that's what happened to him. He got a concussion, and like athletes in so many sports, he continued trying to compete for the next 5 weeks, and the concussion symptoms got to him. He went to 8 doctors before he came across a doctor, Robert Cantu, who figured out what was wrong with him. And since then, he's dedicated his life to educating the world about the problems of concussions. They're the people that discovered this CTE. They're the first ones. They diagnosed the first 2 cases of it in their program that they have back at Boston University. Concussions can happen in every sport. He said you don't think about it, but soccer, especially girls soccer, headers are just awful, and head-to-head hits when people are both going for a ball can create concussions. But you mentioned cheerleading. That's a huge problem in cheer, and cheer is getting more advanced. It's not just young women and a few boys on the sidelines, going rah-rah for the team. There's a competitive cheer, and then there's stunt cheer, and each of those is a step up in the opportunities, the chances of getting concussions. But every sport, it can be a problem. And first they want people to understand how serious the problem is. And then one of the things that's going on with all these former NFL players is that showing the world just how serious it is. They got to get people to believe them. The next thing is they've got to educate them that one hit can be too many, and it doesn't have to be a concussive brain injury that can cause long-term problems. The brain rattling around in the head too many times from non-concussive injuries can still, over time build to a huge life-changing problem. And then they want to do things to make all sports safer. I didn't know this, but now in California, headers are not allowed in youth soccer until children are 12 years old and older, and they want to increase that even more to 13 or 14. They're trying to get tackle football for young kids out until junior high school. They want to cut down tackling in practices. They have done studies that show that if everybody's on an equal footing, and you take tackling out of everybody's practices, then they'll be the same in games. You don't have to hit in practice. You can run through, you can do tag or flag type of football in practices to get your timing down, to get your defensive timing down, and eliminate a lot of concussions and possible injuries in practices. And then the kids are in better health going into football games. And they've got to teach them how to tackle properly, how to run properly. So it's a huge education project, and it's going to take years. But they're encouraged because at least people are now noticing. They're now listening. They're now believing. And Chris Nowinski is going around the country, and he's thrilled anytime any school or group of schools will listen to him and take some action. And there are 6 schools in a pilot program here in the Central Coast that are doing baseline brain testing before the school year begins. And then if a child is injured, they can compare brain scans to their original baseline scan to see if there's any damage, any permanent damage, anything that could lead to long-term damage, because they don't want to stop kids from playing, but they don't want them to play hurt. And one of the first things they said is, it used to be when you get your bell rung, it was a sign of manhood to shake it off, walk it off, and go right back in the game. Now, that's wrong. And they want other people to know that if you don't recognize that you've got a concussion, somebody else should at least be able to say, hey, better to err on the side of safety and caution, and you stay out of the game until we're 100% sure. The wins and losses are not as important as your health.
I was thinking, once a player is taught how to tackle properly, then I think it's instinctual. You don't have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it in practice to have it down. Once you've learned how to do it, I think it's instinctual. It will just come naturally in a game.
I know in the spring and summer, like when they're not in pads, they do teach some technique. They do teach like lowering your shoulders, making sure your heads are up, making sure you wrap up as well.
That's how they taught us, even in junior tackle football. You drive through the ball carrier with your
Another thing I'll add, we've come a long way in terms of evaluating concussions, which to me, I'm with you. It's a great sight to see because another thing to add, well, how many fingers am I holding up? That used to be like what determined if you had a concussion or not, but now it's like that's a thing of the past. They're doing all these different tests and scans, which is great to see.
I do think it's worrying that soccer players and cheerleaders, they don't even have any headgear to absorb the blow.
Basketball as well. Basketball as well. I mean, concussions can happen on the basketball court.
I think they're probably less frequent in basketball than soccer and cheerleading, but they can happen, and it's a harder surface.
We're seeing more and more softball players. It used to be we'd go out, you and I are old guys, so we've been doing this a long time, and we'd go out and they'd just be playing softball, and a lot of them don't, they have ponytails and things. They don't wear baseball hats. But now I'm seeing more and more not only helmets in the field, but helmets with masks.
Yeah, I know Skylar Johnson always wears a helmet with
and she's not the only one. Yeah.
Lauren Wade last year, she had to wear a specialized mask as well.
But they don't have to wear it. I mean, Armani Garcia down at Santa Ynez, the pitcher, there's a short distance between the pitcher's mound and the batter's box, and you can see a lot of balls just ripped right back to the pitcher.
It might be a little surprising that there are not more.
In the central section, this involves coaches. In the central section, managers or head coaches, they actually are required to wear the hard helmets, only because there was actually a death that happened years ago. So they're trying to prevent that as well.
Well, it's good that Dignity Health and those organizers are kind of shedding more light onto the topic. And Elliot, you did a good job, kind of spreading the word, and hopefully a lot of young athletes and their parents attended this seminar and kind of learn a thing or two about not going back in there right away if you think you might have a concussion. So hopefully we do see some of those numbers go down. Track and field, which we're going to talk about next. You don't think about concussions, but those can happen anywhere. I know pole vaulting is probably one of the more dangerous track and field sports. That
hurdles as well.
I think it would not be a bad idea to require all pole vaulters to wear some kind of headgear.
Yeah, I think I have seen some helmets with pole vaulters. But moving on to track and field, Kenny, you were at the county meet at Carpinteria High School over the weekend. Historic day for the 4x1 relay team from Righetti on the girls' side, smashing a 35-year-old meet record. What did you see from the track meet? What stood out? Were there any surprising results, any disappointments? How would you kind of sum up what you saw Saturday?
To be honest, it was one of the better days for the North County that I could remember at these championships. I remember one year the San Marcos girls won every running event except one. Wow. And the North County broke some of that dominance, and I would say the biggest highlight was the Righetti girls setting it was a 35-year-old meet record, and they beat it by 16/100ths of a second, which is a convincing margin. And their first handoff was very good. The second handoff, before the second handoff, their third runner took off a little early. She recovered. Handoff wasn't quite as good as it could have been, but they got it done. And the last handoff, you could tell they just wanted a safe pass. So they could potentially, if all three handoffs are spot on, they could even go faster. But if I were on the Righetti coaching staff, I would be very happy with it. And those four runners, they all ran solid legs. It's a solid-looking relay team. Sarah Perkins doubled, one of the premier throwers in the area. She got a shot put and a discus double. Rayanne Booker, who's only a freshman, tied a seasoned runner from San Marcos named Jenny Noli, who's a veteran county meet champion. Actually, you don't see ties in an open 100 very often, but this was a dead heat tie. Ty Hernandez from Cabrillo doubled in the hurdles, the boys' hurdles. This is his third time winning there. Some of the luster was taken off Shemar Savage, who has run a wind-aided 10-600, and non-wind-aided, he's still a legitimate, I would say, at least 10-8 or so runner. He was not there. I could not catch up with Claudia Terrones to try to find out why. Unfortunately, Shemar is prone to has been prone to some injury. Hopefully, if he was injured, it was only slight, because obviously he'll have no choice but to run at the Los Padres League prelims, because he can only advance to the sectional prelims by getting through your league finals.
All right, that's all we got for this week. Stay tuned for the next week's show, and tune into SantaMariaTimes.com, LompocRecord.com. The rest of this week, we got a lot of pivotal games, critical games. Hancock baseball has a big game against Cuesta on Thursday, and a lot
Basically,
of
they have to win to have a chance to get in.
Yeah, so we'll have coverage from that Hancock baseball game. If they want to end the playoffs, they got to win at home against Cuesta on Thursday. And then, of course, Lorenzo, you'll be at that big Lompoc Templeton baseball game. Thank you guys for tuning into 805 Sports Talk.